event that gets people coming. You can't hear me. I'll do my best. First of all, Dave Smith asks that everybody turns off their cell phones if cell phones are on. And I guess I am supposed to say something about the evacuation procedures. Basically, you all know it. If you hear the alarm, stay put until you get further instructions from the desk. Okay? Thank you all for coming. Is Al Hoffman here?
No.
He's not here.
He's away.
I wanted to introduce the very first president of the council 13 years ago. It occurred to me that some of these people will be here for the 25th anniversary of the council, but we won't get into that. The very first thing that we do traditionally, we have five fine candidates picked by the nominating committee. But the surprise is, if there is anybody who wants to nominate anyone from the floor, that is perfectly acceptable. Are there any nominations? Going. Okay, we have five fine candidates. I can't say it, but many people have said to me, how the heck am I going to decide? It's like maybe I'll flip a coin because they're all great. Well, that's a very nice way for things to be, so we're happy with that. I'd like to introduce the nominating committee because they worked hard to get these people. And would each of you stand up? Paul Farges, and Dave Smith, and Sharon Raphael, and where is Rhea Stein? There she is. And me, Carl Rudd. Okay. We will begin with the speeches of the candidates. You will each have 4 minutes to speak, up to 4 minutes, and Dave will be watching on a stopwatch, and he will tell you if your 4 minutes is up. Now, you don't know a little card trick here. The card trick. I have 5 cards. As far as you know, they're all identical, right? Each of you will pick one. And now you know the order in which you will speak. So, will number 1 come up, please? Ina Todorov. You may speak either from the podium or from your seat, if you wish.
You may have trouble with the 2 microphones that are on right next to each other. Give the one back to Carl.
No, that's just a stand.
Did I not leave a microphone on top of this? Oh, sorry. Excuse me.
Hi. Most of you know me, but for those who don't, I'm Ina Todorov. Lucy, my dog, and I came to Woodland Pond 18 months ago at the tail end of the quarantine. Before coming to Woodland Pond, I lived outside San Francisco, where I served as president of my homeowners association for 27 years. There I was responsible for the day-to-day running of a $2.3 million annual budget. I also was responsible for a $28 million remodel of our facility. I might be Woodland Pond's youngest resident, but I've got a lot of energy to give. In California, I also served as president of Heart and Soul. We started it to give those suffering from mental illness issues a place to come to get a hot meal, get job input, to relax, and even watch a movie. It proved so successful it still runs today. I was also a panelist for Stamp Out Stigma, a volunteer group where people with mental illness or family members talk about their experiences. We spoke to psychiatrists, nurses, medical students, dentists, social workers, law enforcement, high school students, and clergy. My work experience took me on the road in California. If you know California geography, my territory was Bakersfield to the Oregon border. I also covered 9 of the Bay Area counties. I sold several items over my 30-year career. It's funny how things that go around come around. I spent the first 20 years of my life on the East Coast, then moved to California for 43 years, and now I'm back. I was married for 19 years. For 11 of those years, my mother-in-law lived with us. I had the responsibility of her day-to-day care and getting any support she needed. I became a widow in 2010. Once I became a widow, I became a volunteer for the Villages, a senior social group in my community. I was able to help with logistics, implementing ideas, taking part in varied social events, and anything else that needed doing. In my years in California, I had many visitors who I had the pleasure of playing tour guide to. It reminded me of my 2 years spent as a National Park Ranger stationed at the White House. Being a tour guide on the East Coast or the West Coast, I was able to ask and answer questions and try to accommodate everybody's needs. My life experiences also had me working as a legislative aide.
I knew your time was up.
Oh, sorry.
However, there will be a chance to ask questions afterwards. Okay? And I see a 2 of hearts in front of your seat, Alice.
I am. First of all, thank you, all of you, for coming and supporting this process. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good. My husband and I moved here about a year and a half ago, slightly over a year and a half, and it's been a very good decision for us. Since moving here, I have engaged myself happily in activities here at Woodland Pond. I attend sessions of the Women's Tea. I also go to current events. I'm a member of Short Story One, and I'm a member of the Library Committee and the Welcoming Committee. I feel that these opportunities give me exposure to different people in different groups, and I find that refreshing to hear the opinions of other people. During my past life, before coming here, I was a junior high school teacher for 23 years. My curriculum involved teaching life skills in addition to decision-making, problem-solving, and career exploration. I earned a master's degree in special education, which greatly aided me when teaching special education students. During the time of my involvement with the school district, I was on the executive board of the WCT, which is the Wappingers Congress of Teachers. It's an arm of NYSET, New York State United Teachers. I was also active in many educational committees in my school tenure, in addition to church and community. At one time, I was area coordinator for an American Cancer Society study, which I felt very good about since there is cancer in our family. I think that about sizes me up as a candidate. I would hope you would consider me, and if so, I thank you in advance for your support. Thank you.
And now we have the 3 of hearts.
Irvan Boucher. Irvan Boucher. I was born and raised in Central Pennsylvania. After high school, I joined the Air Force for 4 years. After service, I finished my associate's degree in mechanical technology, transferred to the State University of New York College of Education, Buffalo, New York, where I earned my bachelor's degree in industrial arts education. I was a middle school teacher in industrial arts education for 33 years. My professional participation with the Industrial Arts Association, the local, I have held the office of president, vice president, delegate to the State Representative Assembly. The State Association, the office is held membership chairman, benefits committee, membership secretary, and general chairman for the 1975 convention. The national, I belong to the membership of the Industrial Arts Association, National Industrial Art Association. My involvement with teacher unions, the West Point Post-School Teachers Association, and the Federal Education Association. The West Point Teachers Association, offices held, chairman of the formation committee, president and vice president. Final office held was shop steward till retirement. Duties of the shop steward were chief negotiator for the teachers' contracts and labor disputes. The Federal Education Association, secretary treasurer, negotiator for contracts with FEA office and field employees, and special representative to the National Education Association. Being a negotiator for West Point and FEA gave me an excellent opportunity to see both sides of the negotiation process, both labor and management. I got a true value and an understanding of what compromise is all about. I've been at Woodland Pond for 10 months. I have been part of the Sustainability Committee, participated in 2 repair cafes, attended various resident council meetings, some resident council committee meetings, and many of the men's coffees. I am in, that's it? All
When we get to the questions section, I wonder if one of the questions will be, what would you have said if you had another minute? We'll see.
My first question will be, is that a real-time watch back there?
Yeah, the floor of close is next. Are you gonna come up or are you gonna sit there?
Right here. Okay. Good afternoon. It's nice to see so many familiar faces. Marty and I have attended or Zoom almost all the resident council and Q&A sessions since we moved here 10 months ago. With my background in accounting and tax work, I attended several monthly meetings of the Finance Committee, and last June was asked to join the committee. And a few months later was asked to run for this election for the council membership. Let me spell out a few of my qualifications. Following a degree in education from Bucknell, I taught school in elementary school for 5 years before I had my children. Before going back to the classroom, I took accounting courses and also tax work. And I became a licensed as an IRS certified tax preparer. I attained a master's degree in library science from Rosary School of Library Science in River Forest, Illinois. And I spent the next 20 years as a library media specialist, first in Illinois and then in New Jersey. My career titles included teacher, librarian, certified tax accountant, and of course, mother. After moving to New York area, I worked with Martin's company as what he called the glue, but I called the office. As rewarding as my career choices were, what happened next was how legacies were made. In 2006, our granddaughter, Sienna, just age 3, died suddenly. And in her memory, we incorporated a nonprofit Corporation raised money, recruited volunteers, and built 10 schools for the Mayan children in the mountains of Guatemala. I also spent 14 years teaching blind people and partially blind people to cross-country ski with an organization called Ski for Light. Their motto was, if you can ski, you can do anything. I was an election judge for many years in the town of Tuxedo, which gave me a chance to keep in touch with so many of the people in our community. And for almost a decade, I was president of the Friends of the Library in Tuxedo. I was also involved in many church activities. As I mentioned earlier, I am a member of the Finance Committee. I'm involved in the Library Committee and the Land Conservation Committee. My background and my desire to help make Woodland Pond the best it can be seems a perfect fit to be a council member. I guess I'm supposed to ask you to vote for me, so I'll say, vote for Caroline. Thank you.
And Yaakov, who has the 5 of diamonds, is the only member who is currently on the council.
Okay, good afternoon, welcome everybody. I hope that you vote for me. I promise to reduce your taxes, send you on vacation, paid vacation 3 weeks every year. Oh, that's the wrong thing. I mean, my campaign manager gave me the wrong note, sorry. Okay, no, seriously. I served 1 term in the council. I've been here only for about 2 years and 3/4, I mean, basically. And I found it extremely rewarding in terms of being able to, find more how the workings of the of Woodland Pond acts, and because I had background, cultural background. I grew up in Argentina. I lived in Israel for about 20 years. That's where I went to school, high school. Bachelor's, master's, and PhD in physics. And I came to the US in 1976 to do a postdoc in physics, and I stayed here. Most of my physics career was in medical physics, where I worked in the clinic, in radiation oncology departments, trying to treat patients with cancer. And because of that, I had a long history of interacting with other professionals, working together in teams, and I feel that and my technical background, are a strong contribution to be able to, or try to address troubleshooting problems and try to address whether at the organizational level or as a technical or other areas. I served as volunteer in a number of organizations. The American Association of Physicists in Medicine. I was one of the founders of a volunteer organization, Medical Physicists for World Benefit, where I've been one of the, passed to the presidential chain. I will end up my last term of the presidential chain at the end of this year, and I felt that I can still contribute to activities here at Woodland Pond. That's the reason I agreed to run for a second term. I think that we have been involved with a number of activities here at Woodland Pond. 1 minute. At Woodland Pond, both besides the council, the sustainability committee. You have been participating in some of those activities, and a few other, the current events groups and so on and so forth. So I hope that by continuing serving in the council, I can contribute to making Woodland Pond a more connected, and active environment. Thank think about the paid vacation. It was from another.
All right, and now it's your chance. Paul Farges will be passing amongst you with a microphone, and you can address your questions to the group as a whole or to individuals. It's up to you. What would you like to know about the council or what these people will do on the council? Think deeply. First question is from Rhea.
Right, this way.
While all of you talked about your past performances and associations, I'd like to know from your long or short association with Woodland Pond, what you see that you would like to have happen if you are elected to the council.
Any of you can take it? Anybody on?
From my end, I mean, one of the things that I see that there is a need of more connectivity. I mean, people participate in certain things, but they are quite, unfamiliar with some other things. There is so many things that happen here at Woodland Pond, and some people don't know about it. And I think I found out that one of the issues is the issue of being connected in terms of being able to know what's going on. I proposed, as member of the council, I already proposed to have some kind of connectivity medium. I know some people have more difficulty with computers than others, but all of this can be solved. I mean, there are ways to solve this, and that's on the works. On the other end, I think that there is things that people need to be able to address any concerns with the council members. I think that as many of you are, some of you are participated in the year's session, I mean 15 minutes before every meeting, where you can bring anything you want to the council meeting, or to address it with anybody that you find in the corridor to bring it up. So I think that the council role, if that's your question, Ria, or you're talking about Woodland Pond in general.
I was talking about Woodland Pond in general, and actually I was addressing my question to all of the candidates, not just you.
Yeah, I don't want to take,
I know that these are ongoing problems and I don't have an immediate solution, but I find the dining room very cold. I find the game room extremely cold, and the classroom indeed cold. I also find the food to be not what I expected when I came here. And we all know that they're making valiant efforts to make that better. In fact, I was on the committee that interviewed Amy as a candidate, and we were happy that she was eventually employed. And I think we've seen improvement. But I think we can never let our guards down, and we can keep working on issues. And I would also be very receptive to any issues that you brought to the council or to us as individuals. I would certainly be a good listener, and I would value your input. Thank you.
Thank you.
One of the things that I realized in trying to find a place to come to was we are unique in that we have an association here that's made up of all residents, and we have the council, which is made up from the residents group. And we actually get an input into what goes on here. Most of the places that I went to, both here in Pennsylvania and New Jersey and here, if I brought up the idea of, well, do the residents get to do anything? Oh yeah, they do this, they do that. Well, do they ever have a say in what goes on? And you get this blank stare like, why would you ask them? You know, they just, what do they need? Well, I really think we need a lot. And I think going to the Residents' Council for me has really opened my eyes as to how well most of you people want to run this place, and your hearts are in the right place. And I would like to be a part of that. Thank you.
I have been interested in, I have been interested in the progress that the Mental Health Committee has made, and I hope they continue to offer more services to those people who want it and need it.
Thank you. And now you've had time to be thinking about more questions. I know they're out there. Pat.
My question to the five of you is, do you have a copy of our bylaws? Number two, have you read them? Number three, do you realize that in general, that's your job assignment, is to deal with those and to obey them?
Pat, I was duly impressed with your presentation at the last council meeting, okay? And what I saw was the council go into action after you finished. They actually took some action. I can't say what it is because the minutes have not been approved yet. But the bottom line is, well, I saw yours in action and I was very impressed. And I have to give you a lot of credit. You stood up there and did more than 4 minutes and really, and really told us which side the bread and butter was on. Thank you.
Copy of the bylaws? Of course. I'm sure we all have copies of them here. Oh, I know. Okay. I'm sure we all have copies of the bylaws and have looked at them before we commit ourselves to even running for the council.
Yes, I have them and I read them a number of times.
I have read the bylaws and then am up on the current, issues with them.
Indeed, I have also read the bylaws. I am familiarizing myself with them, and I have read them thoroughly. I have a personal copy. Thank you.
All right. Larry.
I'd like to find out what each of you thinks about the current and potential future relationship between the council and the management of Woodland Pond. How effective is it? Does it exist? At what level? And what could be done to make it better?
As a current council member, I've got to step in and say that was a hard question. Who wants to take over first?
I think that the relationship is quite good. I think Michelle is extremely responsive to the council. She frequently makes her presence at the council meetings, and there seems to be a very positive dialogue between the council and Michelle, and there's never a hesitancy to bring up thorny issues from what I've witnessed when there.
Do you wish to speak to this?
I think management respects the council and the council respects management. And when you have mutual respect, you can work together. There's always room for improvement on both sides, but I think at this point, I see it as being an ongoing issue with working together, and successful outcome seems to be the one for both sides.
I was very impressed by the positive relation between the council and management. I mean, we have interactions at different levels, from the CEO that participates in the council meetings, the easy access to her on issues, outside of the agenda, and also the interaction with other people in management, the directors of the different sections, whether it's maintenance, housekeeping, and the kitchen, the dining room, and so on. So that's my experience has been extremely positive. And I think that they do listen to what we have to say. They react to that. They don't just listen, but they react. We don't always get, to dictate what we want, because that's their responsibility to manage the facility. But other than that, I think that I have not seen a client, institution kind of relation which is any better than this.
Being part of the finance committee, I certainly have seen the workings of Michelle, as she is usually at every finance committee for the whole time. And I also, the question time before the council meeting starts, when various members can ask a question or make a request. And if the council can't solve the things, if that is something that is really management, then those items are taken to Michelle. And I think they're usually successfully taken care of.
I agree. I think it's an unusual and very healthy and wonderful arrangement you have with management, in that Michelle genuinely listens and she will take action. Plus the fact, this goes, as was said before, this goes all the way down to the maintenance people and everything else. My two vanities were replaced 6 months or so after I moved in. And it took a while, but finally, when it all got done, a fellow by the name of Rob came in and he looked at it and he says, oh, this isn't right, that isn't right. And he spent about half the day there fixing what was needed to be done. I think in most places they would have said, oh, just deal with it, you'll be okay. So I think we do have a good relationship, and I think it's something we can be very proud of. And I think it's something we'll be able to keep too.
As council members, I know that just about every question that ever comes up in this place would come before the council. And I recognize that nobody can do everything. But what I would like to hear from each of you is if you could name one issue that is closest to your heart to make progress on, what would it be?
That was a good question, and I'll give them a second to think about it. No, Alice is ready already. Go.
An interesting thing happened. Is you sure this is on?
It is on.
When we arrived here, somebody's putting their hand up, so I can't hear me.
Take this one.
Hold it close to your nose.
When we first came here, we had the usual orientation, and in passing, it was mentioned that there might be some tax considerations when one would do taxes the following year, and possibly even after that, with regard to fees paid at Woodland Pond. I remember that, and I urged my husband to speak with our accountant when he went to see him to have the taxes done. And when we received the taxes back, there was no consideration given to anything related to Woodland Pond, although we had received documentation from Woodland Pond, which told us about the amounts of money that were applicable to our tax. I was very disturbed by that. So we sought the counsel of a very learned person here at Woodland Pond, who no doubt you all know who I'm referring to. And he reviewed our taxes. And much to our glee, it turned out totally different, and we had a much better refund, and it was quite a large sum of money involved. And we had to take that tax return back to our accountant. The obvious thing is, I don't think we'll be using that accountant again. But I just want to be certain that all people are informed. And I think it's very important, because I think we're all mindful, no matter how rich or poor we may be, I think we're all mindful of taking care of our assets. And in our case, it made a huge difference. And I know as a result of the experience that a meeting is already in progress. It's already scheduled for November 10th. And we urge all new people and old people, not old quotation marks, I'll use that advisedly, to attend that meeting. It's something that has been on my mind, and I'm happy that this meeting is occurring and that nobody goes without knowledge to their accountant or to whomever they go to do their taxes, to have them done correctly, and that you reap the benefits to which you are entitled. Thank you.
One of the many areas I'm involved with is the dining committee. And I think, as was brought up by Alice earlier, that there are areas within the dining department that can use some magic fairy dust and some improvement. And so between sitting on the council and sitting on the dining committee and some of the other areas I'm involved with, hopefully that can get squared away.
I think one of the things that we need to do is keep an eye on the strategic plan for Woodland Pond. And you may not know, but there are copies of it in the library on the shelves underneath where the newspapers are. And I suggest that you might want to look at it. And I also think that the council needs to be very aware of that.
I'm gonna give away my age here. What exactly was it that you asked? Because it's gotten really, changed as it's coming down.
I asked what issue would be closest to your heart to deal with.
Oh, okay. I guess the most important thing to me is that we keep the lines of communication open between management and the association and the council. And that we don't dissolve that in any way, shape, or form. And because to me, I think it's what makes this place different than all the other places that I've seen or heard of.
I'm going to give you two answers. One of them, I second what Ivan just said, and the other one is that we become part of the, I couldn't say the solution, but we need to address issues of global warming, reducing our impact on the environment, and that's just not an issue. It's an issue that it's important internally as well as in our bigger surroundings, not just Woodland Pond. We are not going to solve the climate crisis ourselves, but we have to start somewhere, and we have to look beyond our own little, kitchen.
Obviously, these people have a lot to say. I'm impressed. And Maddie, who was head of the council when we got here, will now contribute.
Oh, well, that took away my introduction. Let me tell you, the council was quite a different story when I got here, and some of the people in this room. I succeeded Pat Kirkpatrick. My question is, are there areas that you think it is not appropriate for the residents' council to expect some say?
Okay, if you're going to tell us what areas are not appropriate, let's try and be a little short this time.
Tracking interest groups. An interest group is a group. It's a group, it's not needing to track.
That was right on.
It's, from some of you, this may be an in-joke or in-issue, but this is what the council has been dealing with most recently, and there are feelings back and forth about it. We won't get into that any further. Yes?
I just wanna know what tracking means.
It's a question of how much responsibility the council is due to take, needs to take over each of the various groups here. And it's a backward question, back and forth. It's really a standing issue of how much power or how much responsibility does the council wish to take on, and how much is left to individuals. Andy?
Well, my question is different though. It's not how much it wishes to do. I want to know, and I'd like to hear from each of you, whether you feel there are limits to what the council can or should do.
Have you limits for what the council should do?
Or can we?
Perhaps the issue that Ina mentioned wasn't fully available to you, not having been at the council meetings, but basically it involves an issue of how much control management or the council has over interest groups. In groups that are for fun, groups like Bridge and Canasta and Pinochle that you all so enjoy. And it came down from the council that now it would be required to have a chairman, and you would have to make reports on these interest groups. And there was a rebellion with regard to that topic. And Pat brought it up at the last council meeting and was quite vehemently opposed. And it's an issue that's being reopened and reconsidered. And it was viewed as management being too intrusive in an area that didn't really serve their interests. I hope that goes further to explain that.
You did, thank you.
I want to answer Maggie's question.
But she's gonna vote for it. This is for candidate.
Forget it, okay. Any other questions?
Could we hear from everybody, Carl? No, we didn't. No. Anybody else, anybody care?
I think the things that we as a council should not be involved with, budget, employment, who gets hired, who doesn't get hired, disciplinary actions as far as their employees are concerned, all of that can get to be a real sticky wicket. And as we as members of this association shouldn't be involved in that. That's management's sole responsibility. And it's just along the lines of like with the superintendent of a school system. They make up the budget, they make up the curriculum, and the teachers teach it. They can have input to it to a certain degree, but they cannot forcibly change it. I think that's about the only thing that we, as far as our day-to-day running, I think the management will listen to what we have to say.
Okay, we have time for a couple of more questions. All right, while you're thinking about the last question, I will fill you in, remind you how the voting is going to work. Now that there were no nominations from the floor, we have a ballot that's about to be run off. Dave and I will print it and cut it up into voting size. And when you get up tomorrow morning, there will be an early voting box on the concierge desk. Ask for a ballot, they'll check off your name, and you can vote right there at the concierge desk from 8 o'clock tomorrow morning right through till Monday morning. And then for old-fashioned people who like to vote in person, we will be in the conference room Monday from 10 to 2 for voting.
The conference room or the classroom?
Conference room. Pat?
I think the concierge be advised that ballots that they receive there should be in a sealed envelope with the resident's name on. But the ballot is not to be seen by anybody except the nominee.
We haven't done it that way.
Oh, you have it their way?
Yeah, we haven't done it sealed envelopes. It just goes right into the wooden box.
Anonymously.
The concierge will check off the names so we know you have gotten a ballot. All right, we have a wonderful group of candidates. I suggest thank you for attending.